In the earlier classes, we have seen in the last couple of lectures, we have seen how we proceed with high level synthesis. We have in particular seen how we do profiling of the tasks and then look at the different scheduling steps, and we have in particular seen 4 scheduling algorithms by which we can schedule the tasks in the different control steps. Today, we will look at a particular example of an interesting example of a digital camera. A digital camera example, I have selected this example from the textbook that has been referred for this course, that is Embedded System Design, a Unified Hardware Software Introduction by Frank Vahid and Gevorgis. I have taken the example straight away from there, and it is a very popular example used in many embedded system courses. A digital camera will illustrate the design of a digital camera will illustrate the different steps that are involved in an embedded system design. In particular, I have selected this because I want to carry out the hardware, show you the hardware software trade off. Okay. As I had said earlier that any embedded system design is not only hardware design, it is not only software design, but designing both, but more importantly I had used another term called hardware software co-design, if you recall. That is, we carry out the hardware design we also carry out the software design, and these two are dependent on the design decisions are dependent on each other. And prior to that, this arcing, this forking that has happened here is known as hardware software partitioning. That is, which part of the tasks or which subset of the tasks will I carry out in hardware and which parts I will carry out in software. Okay. That will be illustrated, and how that affects the performance, that will be illustrated in the digital camera example. To start with, let us think of the different tasks that a digital camera is expected to perform. First of all, it will capture images. It will store the image in digital format. There should be a facility to download images to PC. Now, this is a simplified task. Besides that, there are many other functions that can be carried out. But here we see that when we capture images, we have got a CCD camera using CCD, we will capture the images. That means, when the shutter is pressed, the image is captured, okay. And then that image is converted to digital form by charged coupled device. All right. So, the image will be incident on the lens, and from there it will be received by the charge coupled device, which will convert the image into a digital form. Now, the images have to be stored in the digital format. Now, obviously, all of you use digital camera, and you know that we can store multiple images we can store in the camera. There are no films required, and the number of images that we can store depends on the amount of memory, number one, and the resolution of the images. When we go for high resolution, that means we are using higher number of bits per pixel, right. So, higher number of bits, the number of bits used per image. Now, in order that I can store more number of images, some sort of compression is required. That is a part of the task. The third is the downloading of the images to the PC. The digital camera will have to be attached to the PC, and there will be some software commands or hardware software commands by which the camera will transmit the archived images serially to the PC. It is usually done through some USB or some other communication mechanism. Besides that, there are many other functions like zoom in, zoom out, flash, auto, all those things that we are not considering in this lecture for the sake of manageability and simplicity. So, let us start with how the image is captured. Now, we have got these dots that you can see here are the different cells, CCD cells. Okay. This is the lens area, and the image will be incident on this, and some of, depending on the image, some of the cells will be activated, some will be not. Some will have incident light, some will have be not. So, there is an electromechanical shutter by which if we press that, then this lens or this area is exposed to the image or to the light. And there is an electronic circuitry. As the lens is, as the image is incident on this, the cells get charged. That is why they are charged coupled devices. They will get charged. Now, each cell will have a particular level of charge, and that particular level of charge will be encoded using 8 bits. So, 255 will be the highest extent of incidence or intensity, and 0 will be the least. Okay. And this electronic circuit will read those, and also it can be used to discharge these cells. Now, most importantly, you have to look at this. Ideally, what is the scenario? Ideally, if there is no light incident, then the charge should be 0, but in practice there are some manufacturing defects, and so the charge is non-zero even for no incidence of light. How can, so we have to take some corrective measure for that. In order to do that, what is done is these two columns on the extreme right, you can see, are covered black. Therefore, no light will be incident on this, and hence, since no light is incident on this, the value should be 0. If the value is non-zero, say 5 or something, then I have got a positive offset of 5 for all these. So, I have to correct that image. If I have got 255 here, that should be actually 250. So, that is called 0 correction or offset correction, 0 offset correction. So, that is in essence the structure of the CCD part, okay, how we will capture the images. So, as I had said, after we capture the image, we can see that we have captured the image here. Then the next step will be pre-processing, and the pre-processing will start with 0 bias correction. Here we have got a matrix 8 by 8 we are showing plus 2. Now, these are the covered cells. You have seen that there were 2 columns of those. So, the 2 columns of covered cells. So, we are looking at the intensity values that are coming in these 2 cover cells. So, 12 and 14, that means my 0 bias adjustment would be minus 13, 12 and 10 minus 11, okay. 12 and 10 is 22. So, average of these is minus 11. Here I have got in that particular dot there was no manufacturing defect. So, no adjustment is required. All right. It is also assumed that the variation of the manufacturing defect is spread along the rows in the way they are manufactured, but along the columns they are same. Okay. So, next is what we do is we take each of these values and subtract the average of this. So, 136 minus 13 becomes 123, 146 minus 11 becomes 135. Here you look at 186 and that is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 5 by 4. So, I come to here. So, 186 corrected remains 186, because here for this row it is 0. All right. In that way we carry out the 0 bias adjustment. So, first we have captured the image and then we have done the 0 bias. We will have to, the CCD camera will have to do these tasks. Okay. So, that is done, 0 bias adjustment is done. Next we need to do compression, okay, and that is required to store more images, to transmit images to PC in lesser amount of time. If I can compress, then I will have to transmit less number of bits. In digital camera, we are using the JPEG format of compression. Okay, you know that JPEG stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group. There are different modes that JPEG allows, but this is, in this example we are concentrating on a particular type of compression, that is a discrete cosine transform. We will carry out the discrete cosine transform because that gives us high compression ratio. The entire image we are assuming is 64 by 64 pixels, 64 by 64. That entire thing we are dividing into 8 by 8 blocks. So, we will have we have got the image which is 64 by 64 pixels. On this side also 64. We are breaking them into 8 by 8, all right. That means, how many such blocks I will have? 64 blocks, right. I will have 64 such blocks, and we will be carrying out the compression and everything on each of these blocks separately. That means, at a time I will take one of these blocks and work on that. For each block, 3 types of operations, 3 operations are actually carried out. What are the 3 operations? One is discrete cosine transform, other is quantization, other is Huffman encoding. We will have to encode them, we will have to actually write them in different bit patterns. We have to do it in a way so that the number of bits are also minimized. At every stage we will try to minimize the number of bits. So, let us start with the discrete cosine transform step. I am not going into the details of discrete cosine transform, that you can get in any signal processing book, or also the book of Fahid and Gevargis explains that. I will just mention only the parts which are required for our design. We are transforming the original 8 by 8 block. I have selected one 8 by 8 block and I am trying to transform that to the cosine frequency domain, cos omega t type of domain. As I do that, the beauty of this is that the upper left corners will represent more essence of the image, the lower right corners will represent the finer details. So, what is happening actually? If I have a block, this part will have the essence of the image mostly, and as we go down either this way or this way, the essence comes down and here it is a minimum. Okay. Now, for those of you who know about information theory, that any information, an image is also an information. So, whichever elements are very frequent, they have got less information. Whichever are less frequent, they carry more information. So, here actually the elements that will come ultimately, we will see that later, will be of lesser frequency, and here as we go down the higher frequency components will come. So, upper left corner represent more essence, and so consequently what happens, I can offer differential treatment to the different parts of the image. Whichever is carrying the actual essence, I will devote more attention. In our case, more attention means more maybe bits, or actually will put in lesser bits there, because we will come to that. We will have to take care of that resolution much more. Okay. Now, we actually do say, when we take an image and convert it to the frequency domain, cosine frequency domain, that is forward transform, and later on from there we have to retrieve the image. When you want to print the image, you do not want to have the transformed cosine frequencies spread on your photographic plate. Instead, you want that to be brought back and the actual image should be retrieved. That is inverse density. But for the camera, we are not interested in the inverse density, we are interested in the forward density. In the forward density, this I tell you that I am not going to devote much time on this, just to show you what it is. Many of you might be knowing discrete cosine transform. So, CH is basically a basis function, okay, that if H, whatever H is, it is 0, then I have CH becomes 1 by root 2, otherwise it is 1. Now, this function is used f u v, u and v are say in the 2-dimensional image, u and v are the 2 indices. All right. So, for each pixel we take different u's and v's, 1/4 cu cv, this is a dot product also, and then sigma x, that means row wise I go from 0 to 7, all the 8 rows, and then column 0 to 7. dxy is the original pixel value at row x column y. I am multiplying that dx with cosine frequencies. All right. With that I get the transform. So, this FUV will give me the encoded pixel at row u column v, and dxy is the original image intensity. Okay. So, that is what we are trying to do. So, I have taken an image, taken an 8 by 8 block out of it, and then applied density. After density, I get this 8 by 8 matrix after using density. So, you can very well see that this part has got a value 1150, 39, minus 81. Look at the absolute values of this. So, these are the essence of the image, As we go down here, this is -4. In that way, I have got it. Now, this is in a continuous domain. I mean, not continuous domain, they are discrete values, but I do not want to go by the value, absolute value of this. I want to quantize it. So, some of the values I will club together. So, when I quantize with respect to some power of 2. So, here if I divide each element with 8, that is 2 raised 3, if I divide each of these elements by 2 raised 3, that means 8, I will get such values. This again quantized, you can see 1150 divided by 8 is not exactly 144, okay, but we get the, say for example, 39 divided by 8 is 4 point something, but we make it to the nearest rounding. So, it is 5. So, after quantization I get this. Thereby, what did I sacrifice by quantizing? I sacrifice the quality of the image or the precision, right. I sacrifice that, but what did I save? Number of bits. So, therefore, I get the higher compression ratio here, and very well I can go out this way by multiplying by 8, right. Then there will be little change, but so we need fewer bits for encoding. Okay. So, this is what is quantization. So, once again I go back, I start with capturing the CCD, all right. I capture the image, this will be some distribution of intensity values, then I correct them with 0 correction. So, I get a corrected distribution of intensity values here. Okay. Then I do some compression, and for compression we selected here discrete cosine transform. As I do that, I get a matrix like this, which I am quantizing, I am getting this matrix. Okay. That is it. Now, after quantization, here I have to actually have the bits, I will have to actually have to give the bits, I have to encode them, I have to encode them using some bits. Now, for encoding, and I said that we will be using Huffman encoding. One of the first steps that is done before the encoding is serialization. Each of the 8 by 8 will be serialized with respect to some. So, if I serialize this, I will get an array of some integers, right. Now, how do I serialize it? The serialization is done using a zigzag pattern. Why in a zigzag pattern? Because if I had straightway gone here, then from more information to less information, then I come again more information to less information, more information to less information, or the other way, if I start from here and go down more to less like that. So, then I would have lost the serialization of the information content. Therefore, a zigzag pattern is utilized, so that I keep the more information content things together as far as possible, right. Clear? So, that is the pattern that is done. Now, once that pattern I get, now here let us explain a little bit. For those of you who do not know Huffman coding, I had this matrix, if you recall, here after quantization, I had this matrix. In this matrix, I find out that these are different different pixel values here, -1, 0, -2, all the different pixel values that I have, and I look at the pixel frequencies, how frequently they appeared. I can see that pixel value 1 here, pixel value 1 has appeared 5 times, pixel value -1 has appeared 15 times, and pixel value 14 here 14 has appeared only once, less frequent. So, I sort them. So, this one has got more information 14 because it has occurred only once, 6 has occurred only once. So, I must pay respect to them, all right. Somebody who is regularly visiting does not get enough respect. Okay. So, you look at this. Now we will build the Huffman tree in a bottom up fashion. What will you do? This is the Huffman tree. It is sort of heap. How do you do that? Create one leaf node for each pixel value. For each pixel value, for each of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All these 16 pixel values are made the leaf node of this tree, all of them, 1, -1, 1, 5, -10, 14, 6, all of them are made the leaf node. And we assign the frequency to these leaf nodes. For example, 14 has got the frequency 1. Let us look at one, say -10 has frequency 2, because it occurred twice here, -10 here, and there must have been another -10 here. All right. We can see that 5 has occurred 5 times. Let us check 5 here, 2, where is 3, 4, 4 or 5? 5. So, 5 times 5 appeared here. Therefore, the frequency of 5 is 5, and here I put the node 5 and mark that value of that node to be 5. Now, we create internal nodes by joining any two nodes whose sum is a minimal value. I can join these two. I could have joined 1 and 1. I could have joined I am actually joining -9 and 144. I could have joined -9 and -3, but that would have led to 5. If I join these two, -9 minus 144, my frequency is coming to be 2. In that way, at every stage I select the nodes and pair them up, so that their sum, that internal node value, is the minimal for that stage. And there I repeat this until I get the complete binary tree. So, I get the binary tree. I once again repeat how I got the binary tree. I take the leaf nodes. The leaf nodes are marked with their frequencies, and so I pair up two nodes and make an internal node, such that is a minimal combination. Okay. So, 2 and 1 I did not combine, but 1 and 1 I combined, because 1 and 1 gives me 2, 2 and 1 would have given me an internal node of 3. Now, here I have got 2, 2, 5. I did not combine 2 and 5, I combined 2 and 2. I do 4. In that way, I go on traversing, go on combining until I get a complete binary tree. Now, once I have got the complete binary tree, Then my task is to generate the code. Now, what has happened here is I will start from the root to the leaf to get the pixel value of the leaf. Now, and as I traverse, I will, as I go to the left, it will be a 0, I will append a 0. As I go to right, I will append a 1. So, what happens? I want to get the code of -1. Here there is 1 -1. And why do I take the code of -1? Because -1 is the more frequent, and you can see that here, it is more frequent. So, I come here. So, in order to reach -1, starting from the root, I have to traverse left. Once I traverse left, I take a 0, and then I traverse left again, I get this. So, 0 0. Next node is 0. How do I get 0? 0 is somewhere here. So, I have to traverse starting from here right, that means 1, then I have to traverse left 0 1 0, then again left 1 0 0. So, I put 1 0 0 there. Okay. Then -2, where is -2? -2, I will have to traverse right 1, right 1, left 1 1 0. Okay. Consequently, in that way I go on. Consequently, what is happening, you see, for 14 I have getting the maximum number of bits, maximum number of bits. So, 14 is least frequent. So, something that is least frequent is being given more number of bits, because I want to capture more information there, and the number of bits and the amount of information is coupled in the entropy relationship minus pi log pi. Okay. So, in that way Huffman code is generated. Besides that, there is another beauty in the Huffman code. It is also known as a prefix code, because no two codes will have the same prefix. Okay. So, A, B, C, D, if I had, and if I had given 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Now, you see the code for C has got the code for A as the prefix. So, if I get some 0, 0, 1, I have got an ambiguity problem here. It can be C, B, it could be A, B, and so on and so forth, A, D, many things would have come. But that problem is not appearing in the case of Huffman coding. So, purely these are unique encoding that we get, and the other property of this encoding is that I am associating larger number of bits for the low frequency high information component, and here say 144 is a very high frequency, high information. 144 has appeared once. So, what is the code for 144? 1111. See the number of bits over here, all these which are high frequent, -9 was 1. So, all these, you see, the beauty is all these which are having the same frequency have been given the same number of bits. Okay. So, that is the Huffman coding. So, once again I repeat what we are doing. We are capturing the image, compressing the image using DCT, I am quantizing them, then serializing them and I am encoding them. Now, in the next lecture, we will see how these functions can be captured through a design. Okay, we have to implement it through an embedded system design. So, just to start with, we are going to start a design in the next class, but before that let us look at what are the non-functional requirements. All those functions, whatever we have talked about, CCD, image compression, encoding, those are functionalities, those have to be done. But what are the non-functional requirements? The performance is that we must process the images fast enough to be useful. Okay. The customer or the marketing group tells me that 1 second should be a reasonable constraint. Okay. Slower is not acceptable, faster is not necessary for say low end products. I do not need any faster thing. Therefore, it is a constrained metric, it is constrained. You can make it less than 1 second, but need not. Okay. But more than 1 second is not allowed. The size is must use IC that fits in reasonable size camera, constraint and optimization metric, because it is constant, but I need to optimize, because the less number of space it takes, the better it is. So, constraint may be around 200,000 gates, but smaller would be cheaper. Smaller would be cheaper. Therefore, this is an optimization constraint. Okay. Next comes the power. Must operate below certain temperature. Therefore, that is a constraint. Some temperature will be given. Cooling fan is not possible. Therefore, it is again a constraint metric. And energy is reducing power. We have to reduce the power or time, so that the energy is reduced. This is an optimized metric, because we want the battery to last as long as possible. So, these are the non-functional requirements, and typically the informal functional requirements for the camera would be take the CCD input, do zero bias adjustment, do discrete cosine transform, quantize, archive in memory, more 8 by 8 blocks, yes, go and fetch them, do the same thing, otherwise the image is done, you transmit serially. Okay. That is the informal functional specification. Next, tomorrow we will see how we proceed with the design, and then we will show how the hardware software trade off takes place. But in order to do that, we have to understand how the system works. Okay. You can be a but that is not advisable, that you are an embedded system designer, you are designing the thing, but you do not know what this thing is and how this is being used, because you have to take the optimization decisions, you have to take the hardware software partitioning decisions. So, you must know the application thoroughly well. Okay. So, that is how we will today we explain the application. Next class we will be discussing on the design.